We've all had an imaginary friend when we were kids, right? The ones who no one else could see and were our best friends. In a sense, I had one as well. Where I am now, we all shared this friend. Sadly, he wasn't as imaginary as he seemed. My tale starts quite a few years ago, or should I say, our tale. I moved around a lot as a kid, never living in one place long enough to make friends. I was always lonely and sad that my mom and dad never had another kid, so I had someone to play with. I was never a very imaginative kid, but sometimes I would imagine that I had a little brother or sister to play with them. When I was 8, my parents and I moved to a little one-story house in what some people would call the boonies. The house was surrounded by miles of woods, and was old as the woods themselves. I loved that little place as soon as I saw it. It was dark blue, with a red trim all around it. We unpacked and put everything into place once we got there. It didn't take long for us to make it our little home. We settled nicely into this little house, especially me. We were there for only about 2 weeks before I met my imaginary friend. I was out exploring the woods trying to find something to do when I saw a kid about my age a little ahead of me. He was wearing a plain black t-shirt and jeans. He had short brown hair and eerily red eyes. He was just sitting on a log, staring at me. "Hey," I called out, "what are you doing here?" "Nothing much," he replied, just looking for someone to play with." "Out here in the woods?" I questioned. "You'd be surprised about how many kids are out in these woods." "What's your name?" I asked him. "It's Jason. What about yours?" "I'm Donnie." "Hey, Donnie, you want to play?" The kid looked kind of creepy to me, especially since he seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. But it had been forever since I played with someone other than my parents, so the thought seemed off to me, but I was still thrilled to think that finally I had someone to play with. So I told him to come back to my house and we would play with the toys I had in my room. "Sure," he said. I ran off to my house, excited to play with my new friend. I got to the back door and opened it. My mom was in the living room, so I brought Jason in there with me to tell her I was bringing someone over. "Hey, Mom," I said, running over and giving her a hug. "I just made a friend." "Really? What's their name?" "Jason," I said, pointing to where he was standing behind me. "Well, where is he?" my mother asked. "He's right there, silly." "Oh, I see. He's your imaginary friend. Well, hello, Jason. Do you care if we go to my room and play?" "Go ahead, dear. Dinner will be ready soon." "Thanks, Mom." I ran off to my room with Jason right behind me. When we got there, I asked why my mom couldn't see him. "Oh, only kids my age can see me." "Really?" I asked. That seemed awesome to me. "Yeah, I have a special power that makes me invisible to people older than me." That's so cool." We played for about an hour when my mom knocked on the door. "Dinner's ready," she said. "Okay, I'll be there in a minute." I turned back around to tell Jason I had to go, but he was nowhere to be seen. That's odd, I thought. I looked around my room for a minute, thinking maybe he was hiding, but I didn't find a trace of him. I went to eat dinner at the table and I told my mom how Jason just disappeared. "Well, maybe he just has to go for the day," she said. "I'm sure he'll be back tomorrow." She was right. He came and went like that every day for about a week. The last night he was there, we were in my room playing Army and pretending Legos were bombs when I said, "I wish we could play together forever." "We can," he said. "How?" "Follow me tonight, and I will show you." "Okay," I said. We played for about another hour or two. I was having so much fun and so ecstatic about that possibility that I would have a best friend forever. Well, when my mom came and knocked on my door, saying there was dinner, again, he disappeared. Later in the night, as I was fast asleep, I woke up to a tapping sound coming from my window. I got up wary from being woken up in the middle of the night. I looked out the window to see Jason looking through. I threw on a pair of jeans and a shirt and crept out my back door, making sure as to no sound to wake my parents. It was a full moon out, with hardly a cloud in the sky. I wrapped my arms around myself to keep out the chill of the night. His eyes were even redder than I remember them ever being. "Are you ready?" Jason asked. "Lead away." He took off into the woods, me following back. His feet never made a sound over the forest floor as we went along through the woods. We ran for what seemed like forever until we reached a clearing. We got to the middle and stopped. "What are we doing exactly?" "I'm making it so you and I can play together forever." All of a sudden, kids started to come out of the woods around us. Some as old as me, some younger. but all of them seemed to come from different time periods. I turned around frightened, thinking of bolting out of fear, but I was surprised to see even more kids behind me, closing in on a circle. What's going on? I said, turning to face Jason, only to find that he was not the same person who brought me here. He was as tall as my house, and as black as shadows. His arms hung at his sides like sticks on a tree. His fingers were shaped like scythes, and his face, oh, his face! His mouth was full of razor-sharp teeth and pulled into a malevolent grin. His eyes were like pools of blood. I'm making your wish come true, Donnie. I'm making sure we can play together forever. His voice scared me more than anything else. It sounded as if screams of dozens of children were formed into a single demonic voice. He started coming closer and closer until he was right upon me. That was the last thing I remember of that night. It's been years since that night, but I remember it like it was yesterday. A new family moved into my old house, with my family moving out because their child had died there. This new family is a little girl about our age. In fact, here she comes, through the woods right now. Maybe I can get her to play with us. It's not as bad as you might think. We play all day, with not a worry in the world. Maybe one day, you can play with us too.